This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Cabo Jim Schaller.
Welcome, good neighbors, to the Good Neighbor Podcast number 218. Today we have good neighbor Josh Hoover from the Chubby Mermaid Brewing Company. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, excited to learn a little bit more about what you do and the beers that you produce. I was in the beer industry myself for a long time, so really excited to learn a little bit more about what you do. So let's jump right in.
Sounds good.
Go ahead and share a little bit what you do over at the Chubby Mermaid Brewing Company.
Well, so my business partner Gary and I, we're brewing on a 4.2 barrel system. When we opened, before we opened, we decided that we wanted to do a wide variety with a little bit of beer rather than a lot of a smaller variety. So given that objective, we decided that we wanted to open with 20 beers on tap. We only made it to 19.
That's pretty close, though. That's pretty close.
Pretty close. So we have 16 beers on our main, our walk-in cooler, and then we have a small batch keezer, a converted freezer that we do small batch beers, little homebrew size 5-gallon beers. So that makes up the 16 plus the 4 is 20. So we opened with 19. And we were doing half batches on the big system, little 2-barrel batches. So,
nice.
Yeah. So we're just now getting to the point where we're brewing up to 3 barrels because the demand has been there and we need to catch up a little bit.
There you go. That's a good thing. That's a good problem to have. So yeah. Let's back up your story a little bit. How does one get involved in the brewing industry?
I never used to believe this when I was 18 years old, but it's all about who you know and who you make connections with. That's how I got the last couple of jobs that I had, a decade or so ago. And same goes with brewing. I could have tried to get in, as a bottling, line operator or, just a keg cleaner at any other brewing company. That's one way to get in there, and that's sort of the long path. The more kind of expedited path was to have 2 crazy, friends who are just, dumb and crazy enough to sink their own money into starting up their own thing. So that's Gary and my story, basically.
That's the best friends to have. Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about challenges. Obviously starting from an idea to concept and then actually opening a brewery. What type of challenges have you gone through that you can look back at now and say, you know what? We're in a better place now because of
that. When people tell you it's more work than you think, it's 10 times more work than they're stating. It is. That's challenge number one. Hand in hand with that is, for myself and my wife, we moved from San Diego to Florida to do this. We didn't have kids. We don't have kids. We didn't have a mortgage. Gary's kids are grown. And out of the house. So we don't have certain things that may tie other people down to, outside of working here type of commitments. You have to be 250% committed to this thing or more. I mean, when we were under construction, I was probably working between my day job and working on building this business about 70 hours a week. And now that we're open, it's more like 80 to 90. And wouldn't be possible if I had kids or if I didn't have just the rock foundation of, my marriage. And we're here to do this. You have to have everyone committed, fully on board for this to thrive and hopefully succeed.
Absolutely. And you got to love what you do at the end of the day. And that's the biggest part of it. So let's talk about myths or misconceptions surrounding what you're doing. Anything we can clear up for our listeners?
What kind of misconceptions do you maybe have?
Maybe just the small batch breweries that are popping up all over the area. Maybe people got the wrong idea about that.
Let me think about that. So, on our scale, going from 5-10 gallon batches to 4 barrel, the scaling up. There's definitely a difference with regards to hop utilization. And other things, how much yeast you're needing to pitch on the beer. But in terms of, I always equate it to we're doing just really big homebrew. We haven't done a full 4-barrel batch, so really going up to 2 barrels, you're going from like 5 or 10 gallons up to 70 gallons is a 2-barrel batch. So it's not a huge leap. I think people make it out to be this monumental task, to scale it up to the professional level. Now, if we were going to a 10-barrel size, kind of a different ball game. That's substantially larger. So I don't know. I guess the misconception is that it's. Some people say, "Oh, it's not homebrew." Well, a lot of the concepts are the same. It's still mashing grains. It's still recipe formation and creativity and all that. That all still exists. So that doesn't change.
Exactly. So let's talk about those lines. Do we notice anything that's maybe trending in the industry currently?
In terms of beer styles?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, for the better part of the last decade or two, IPAs have kind of run the gamut in terms of being the popular style. And I think within the last decade, give or take a few years, it's been the hazy IPA. But we have found that people are, obviously, and I'm sure this has been published a lot over the years, that people are, kind of going back to lighter beers, pilsners, lagers, fest beers, and stuff like that. But people really like the wide variety. I think perhaps some people are getting a little burned out with IPA heavy everything.
Yeah.
And we have people who are asking us for stouts to sours to traditional Belgian style beers, IPAs too. Red ales. We have a variety, and people are responding to that well, because I think people are thirsty for a variety.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I spent a lot of time in the beer industry as well, too. And, back in the day, it was, your basic domestic beers, a couple of imports, and a handful of craft beers. And that was about it. That whole industry has changed. It's kind of flipped over. People aren't craving those domestic beers anymore. They're looking for that local, small craft, small batch, something that's different and unique.
Yeah. Something changes when, so you have a Pilsner lager and like you're saying, these wide, massive distribution models, right? Those lawnmower beers, the old 70s and 80s, light lawnmower beers. Those are very different when you brew them here on the craft level. And I would say, I don't know anything. You know what I mean? You have a local craft brewery brewing a Pilsner or a lager. People are going to drive themselves more towards that than the stuff that you get warm off of a shelf at the grocery store.
Absolutely. It's the same in any industry. The small craft, locally owned places are the better places to go. I love Mexican food, and going to the small mom and pop places are the best places to go rather than the big chains. So absolutely love it. So you mentioned you were from San Diego and you made the trek all the way over to this coast. Welcome to Southwest Florida. But when you do get a moment of free time, which I'm sure is probably limited right now, but what do you enjoy doing outside of work?
My wife and I used to love taking road trips out in California, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico. There's so much terrain and there's so many national parks out there to visit. We used to like camping out of the back of our 4Runner. I would go fishing quite often out on the Pacific, inshore and offshore. And I would love to get my fishing poles in the water here. A little bit different of a landscape, the fishing world here. We don't call it backwater. We just used to call it lakes and ponds. There's backwater fishing. Of course, there's fishing in the Gulf, but apparently you got to go 100 miles offshore to catch anything worth talking about. So looking to get more into fishing. There's not much in the way of elevation here, so we do miss our mountains dearly. I always tell the highest elevation gain you get is on a bridge overpass or something like that.
That's pretty much it. It's pretty flat down there. Absolutely. So is there one thing you wish our listeners knew about the Chubby Mermaid Brewing Company that maybe they're not so familiar with?
We really want to be a place where people come to enjoy, friends, family. We want this to be, everyone's like neighborhood brewery that they feel comfortable in. We have a wide variety of beers available at all times. We're still trying to find our identity right now. Where we fit into the Southwest Florida, craft brewing, market here.
Yep.
But we want to always offer a wide variety of beers available for folks. and teach people about what craft beer can be, or introduce them to something that they've never seen before. I don't know if people quite understand that. I mean, we try to convey that every time someone walks in the door. And we put it up on our website and our social media and all of that. But we just want to have people enjoy beer as much as we do, and just kind of teach that to people.
Absolutely. It's an education process. People don't know, they think of beer, they think of, Miller Lite, it's not, there's more to it than that. Absolutely. So do you have favorite beer styles?
Yeah. I'd say a daily drinker would be an IPA.
Yeah.
But one of the beers I'm small batch brewing right now is a barley wine. Anytime I go into a tap room, coast to coast, nationwide, if you've got a barley wine on tap, I'm going to try it. Even if I wasn't a fan of the first couple of little samples of your beer, and I'm like, I don't know if this is going to be any good because I didn't love the first two beers or whatever. I see a barley wine on the menu, I have to have it. That is a favorite of mine. Not just because they're high octane or whatever. I love the malty profile of them. They're fun, and yeah, usually they're a bit on the boozy side. But that's a favorite style for me.
Absolutely. That's I love that too. That's great. So how would our listeners go about contacting you if they wanted to come on in and sample some brews?
They could always reach out to us on, Facebook or Instagram, at Chubby Mermaid Brewing. If they wanted to swing by, we're on Old 41, just south of Bonita Beach Road here in Bonita Springs. And you can visit our website, chubbymermaidbrewing.com. And then, of course, our phone number and email is listed on our website as well.
Very good. Any last words for our listeners?
Nope. That's pretty much it for me. Thanks for having me on today.
Hey, Josh, it's been a pleasure getting to know you. Thank you for being such a good neighbor. And I need to come in soon and try a couple of cold ones.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Estero. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpestero.com. That's gnpestero.com. Or call 239-296-2621.